Welcome. This is Happiness Academy Single Parent Success interview. And today I have the pleasure of welcoming an incredible woman who I met through HPM, High Performance Mastermind. She's from United Kingdom. She is a certified high performance coach, an NLP practitioner, and totally amazing woman who has been a single parent in the past. And now she's absolute crushing it. She has great energy, and I'm grateful for meeting her. So please welcome Louise.
Hello, my love.
Hello. So first of all, I want to ask you, are you a single parent by choice? And please share your story with us.
For sure. Okay, so yes, it was definitely my choice. I had my children, I had my first daughter on my 25th birthday, and 14 months later had my second one. And it was difficult. We'd never intended to have children. And so having the two close together was really challenging. We didn't have any money. In fact, my partner lost his job, I think about 2 weeks before our first daughter was born. And that was really, really tough. And I suffered with really bad depression after I had the children for quite a long time, several years, in fact. But there was that whole mentality around, you've made your bed, you've got to lie in it, you've got a family now, you've got to be responsible, and I didn't want to break up a family. I didn't want to, of course I was scared about doing it on my own. I thought, could I do that? Because there'd be nobody at night time, there'd be nobody to come and sort of take them off me so I could have some time on my own. But it got to the stage where I was so miserable, like the depression was just out of control. I was not being the best mum I wasn't being the mum that I wanted to be, and I was really, really aware of that. The relationship that I was in, we actually got married before. We didn't get married until after we had the children, because I thought, well, I've got children now, I've got to get married, right? Because who else would have me? Mm-hmm. So the relationship was really destructive. It was really emotionally destructive. My self-confidence was through the floor. And I really did feel like, I was kind of secondhand goods. That's the way that I sort of felt. But I think the overwhelming feeling was that I was destroying myself. And I don't remember what actually happened. We tried to kind of live in the same house, but live separately for a little while. But all the time I knew I was just kidding myself. I kind of just thought that maybe one day he would get sick and tired of it and he would leave, but he never did. And so one day I just had to say, look, like, yeah, I need you to move out. I need to get a divorce. I literally can't do this anymore. And I think it remains the most difficult decision I've ever had to make in my life, because there was that whole thing of, I am choosing to take the children away from their dad. And I felt so incredibly guilty for a very, very long time about that.
How did you feel that this was the right decision at the time? What gave you clarity to choose that path?
Wow. I think it was just the fact that I knew that I just felt that I was going to destroy the children more if I stayed in that relationship. Even though I didn't know then, obviously, what I know now, there was that knowing that every day they saw, an argument, and sometimes I might see things being thrown at each other, and it was so angry. It was very volatile. The words were horrible. And I think it got to the stage where I just felt like I was living in this bubble. So I got up and I did the things that I had to do, but I could see what other people were doing, but I felt nothing. Like inside, I felt like I was completely dead. Mm-hmm. And I actually went on a course. I learned how to become an EFT practitioner. And as quite often happens when we go on these courses, it turns out to be some self-healing for yourself. And I started to uncover lots of stuff around self-worth that I've been carrying from when I was like 11 years old. And I think it almost, somehow I feel like it must have just opened a doorway for me that said, you know, this is going to be really, really hard for you, but you need to value yourself enough to know that you deserve to be happy.
Mm-hmm.
And that sometimes that means that other people aren't going to be so happy for a while, because, you know, we can't be responsible for their happiness as well.
Right.
And ultimately, I just wanted to be a better mum for the kids. And I knew that I wasn't, I just felt like I was on self-destruct. And if I didn't make that choice, I don't know where I would have ended up.
Mm-hmm. What is EFT?
EFT is emotional freedom technique. So more often than not now, people actually just call it tapping. It's a phenomenal modality, which basically helps us to, is put really lovely, it helps us to remove the emotion from memories that all we have is wisdom. Right? So, because it's really easy, you'll know this, it's really easy. We can think about something that's happened before. We can literally whiz ourselves back in time and we can feel it again. We can experience it. Our body will start, like our heart rate might go up, or we might get sweaty palms. And it's like we're back in that event all over again because our body remembers it. Right. And so with EFT, what you can do is you can go into these events, or you can go and remove beliefs that you don't even know where they come from. And you can just remove all of the emotions. You don't have to keep getting triggered. And it's a really, really great way to kind of change the way that you think and feel about stuff, so that you're in a much more resourceful state.
So you would recommend it for brand new single parents who are
Absolutely.
in depression, who are suffering, who don't see the light in the end of the tunnel?
Absolutely. And there are so many free YouTube channels doing it. It's a really, really simple practice. And, you know, it's always worth trying to work with a practitioner if you can, because they're going to be more expert at it, obviously. But you can certainly get going on your own using the power of the internet, 100%. There's some great books out there. Nick Altner is one of the big guys that writes a lot of books about it. In fact, I think he's very good friends with Brendan Burchard. So Brendan talks about him quite a lot. But absolutely, because I think what happens is when you're in that emotional state there, whether you've been left and, you know, you're dealing with the emotions around that. So a couple of years after I left my husband, I met my soulmate, and who actually ended up leaving. Like, he left me because I had 2 children. He was freaked out and he was like, yeah, I can't do this. And he just left. And I thought that pain was insane. I'd never felt pain like it. I felt completely worthless, right? So I think in those moments we have those choices. We can become those emotions, mm-hmm. or we can start to understand that we have got an ability to be able to, like, what I'm trying to say, like, decrease the intensity of those emotions and make choices to move on. Like, the hurt's going to be there for a while, but it doesn't need to define who we are.
Right. How did you know he was your soulmate?
I just knew. Like, the first time I met him, I don't remember actually, like, looking at him and seeing him and thinking, oh, he's really good looking. He kissed me on the cheek, and it was just like something inside me just went like, there's something about that man. And we had a really, really difficult couple of years, because it's a very complicated story, but he was good friends with my ex-husband. He didn't want children. He's older than me, and he had all his own emotional baggage, and I had my own emotional baggage, and it was a big emotional baggage party for 2 years where we just kind of destroyed each other. But again, there was that overwhelming sense in me that this was part of a beautiful journey where we were going to learn from each other. And we've now been married for 12 years this year. Oh. And it just keeps getting better.
That's great.
Yeah.
What would you say what did you learn the most about being a single parent? What was the most difficult part and what was the best part?
Oh, I love that question. Do you know what I loved? I loved the fact that I remember really clearly. So my children were probably, I think they were like 5 and 6 when I made the decision. And I remember they'd gone to school, and I remember driving down the road and smiling and like touching my face and thinking, oh, like I'm actually smiling, and I actually feel like I'm smiling, like it wasn't just pretend. And it was all of a sudden, I thought, I've got choice. Like I now get to choose how I live my life. And I immediately applied to go back to college. And I found like, I finally felt like it had meaning in my life. Like it was great being a mum, but I needed more than that. And going back off to college. And so lots of us were around about the same age. You know, women that had children that wanted their second chance at life, if you like. And I actually I started at university. I started studying to become a midwife. I got into midwifery college, into midwifery university. And I loved that. I suddenly felt like I had this freedom, like I got to choose stuff. Don't get me wrong, there was lots of tears, there was lots of guilt. I went and had some counselling because there was a lot of, after I actually left, there was a lot of abuse from the ex-husband. There was lots of horrible voice messages, and it was just horrible. And so I kept taking that because I felt like it was my fault, because I'd done the split. So that probably took me a good 5 or 6 years. Now, that was the worst part. The worst part was carrying the guilt and feeling like that I needed to make it up to the children, that I needed to make it up to him, and that if I just suffered a little bit, that would make him happy, because I wasn't so happy. Mm-hmm. So dealing with that took a really, really long time. Right. And I think just being able to go off and do those things that I love doing, and then having those choices, and even to the stage of like moving house, decorating it the way that I wanted it to be decorated, putting the kids to bed at night time, and sitting down and doing my studying, and just the house being clean and tidy. Like I loved all that stuff. I sort of finally felt like I was an adult, and that was I loved it.
Great. If you had a chance to go back in the past, would you do anything differently about the choices you made?
Oh my goodness. Would I do anything differently?
And what would you tell your younger self if you had the choice to go back?
Okay, I'll start with that one because that's easier.
What advice would you give yourself?
If I went back to my younger self, the first thing that I would say is always define your own worth. Like it's not a reflection on how you look or how clever you are or how much money you've got. You deserve, you're worth the world. Everything is possible for you, and don't believe everybody else when they limit you, right? Because I was quite an angry teenager, and I don't know why, but because I had such little self-worth when I was younger, it always felt like I was kind of like always like fighting for breath, like trying to fit in, trying to get people to like me. And then, and you become very reactive. So I was very angry, and and it wasn't a great place. So I would say, love yourself and aim for the stars, because, nobody else is doing that. But in terms of, in that particular situation, I probably wouldn't go back and change anything, because otherwise I wouldn't be where I am today. And so that whole journey was worth to get to where I am, because I feel like I've really just started. But if I had to go back and change something, I would put my happiness first sooner. So I would have left sooner.
Mm-hmm. How did the kids react to your decision to leave? Or they were too little?
I think to some degree they were too little. The oldest one would have been about 6 at the time, and she took it the hardest. So more from a fact of, I think she's very empathic, so she was able to pick up on emotions. So she was already feeling the effects of us fighting all the time, because we've actually got a picture of her when she was about, I'm guessing about 3, and she has got the saddest eyes. Like, it's so sad, and and that's why I think I should have left earlier for their sake. but she had this thing, so that when my ex-husband would pick them up and have them for a weekend, because we'd actually bought them like a little mobile phone, she would text me and am I all right? So she felt guilty if she was there, and then she'd feel guilty if she was with me, so she worried about her dad. And then, and then I remember once kind of being on the phone to him, and he was shouting at me from down the phone, and I was crying, and she sat next to me. She said, "Why does Daddy always make you cry when you talk to him?" So, and I actually think for her in particular, she's 20 in a couple of months. I think that's all really coming out now. I think that all that stuff that happened then is having a massive effect on how she feels about herself and how she's functioning in the world as a young adult today. The other one, we have a saying here, I don't know if you know it, like, she could fall in poo and come up smelling of roses, right? She's got a very positive temperament, and I guess she had the best parts of me, because as I started to grow and I started to learn about psychology and I started to go after my own life and I got into spirituality and angels and things like that, she was much more she got much more of that part of me, whereas the other one got more of the bad stuff, right? So as they've got older, I've totally seen the impact on them differently. So I think for anybody that's really worried about making that change now, I think my personal advice would be do it sooner rather than later, because what our children witness between the ages of 0 and 7 really sets them up for their adulthood. And when they get to the ages that mine are at now, like 19 and 20, they don't want to listen to me. They don't think I know anything. They don't want to know. They just don't want to listen. And when you see your kids in pain, all you want to do is help them. And you want to say, I get it, and this is what you should do. And they don't want to hear it. So as much as you feel like you're splitting up a family, if you know that your children are part of suffering now, the longer they stay in that, I personally think the bigger impact in their adult life.
Right. Yeah, I can totally get what you're saying, because my daughter was 5 and my son was a newborn when Dad left, and I actually see more of that on her. She's older, she's 10 now, and my son is 5, and I do see that first of all, they have 2 different personalities. And the daughter I feel that she's angry maybe inside, and it is difficult to talk to her, and she wouldn't listen to me either.
Of course, it's a real challenge, and and this is where, even as a high performance coach, when you're trying to be influential, but it's with people that you love, it's really hard, because emotions are there and you want the best for them, and it's really hard to accept that their soul has a learning journey as well, because I truly believe that our children choose to be born to us. So I sort of feel like they're signing a contract, and they know what's going to happen. They know what they're letting themselves in for. And I just shared something that happened for me. I had this conversation with one of my coaches, and I said, like, I still struggle with when I feel that my kids are in pain, like not going back to that's my fault. If I had done something differently, they would be different. And he said to me, what was you like when you was 20? I said, oh my God, I was like a pain in the butt. Like I just did stuff, and I argued with people, and I didn't want to be told that I was wrong and everybody else was wrong. And he's like, and how did you turn out? And I said, I think I turned out pretty good. He went, well, there you go. I said, I just don't want it to take her till she's 40. He said, but that's not your choice. So just keep showing up, keep being positive, try not to buy into that story, because obviously we can just keep, when we do that, we keep adding energy to it. So just, gift them the knowledge that they're on a journey, and that, ultimately it's their choice how they make that happen.
Right. If you had to describe your journey, would you say that first you concentrated more on the physical realm, and then you slowly transitioned into emotion and mental state, and to where you are today?
Definitely, because I didn't know any of that stuff, right? So I guess if people would have described me when I was younger, they'd say, well, you kind of always did your own thing. So when we got to 18 and we all left school, and all my friends went to university or college, or they got a job, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to go travel. So I flew to Australia and I spent 18 months doing some traveling. And then I came back and very quickly met the girl's dad, and we moved to Manchester, and I've done different jobs and I've trained in lots and lots of different things. And I did Reiki when I was 21. So that was my first kind of dive into more energy, but I was still very much doing all of these things because I wanted to feel like I was worth something. I wanted to feel special. I wanted to feel like I had a place. Like I didn't do it I don't think I did it from a really good place. I think I did it from a place of believing that I was in lack. Mm-hmm. And if I'm really honest, it took me, I'm 45 in March, and it probably took me till I was about 43 to really, really love myself enough to do stuff because I feel like I'm worth it and I'm capable of doing that. But I really got into angels and spiritual stuff when I left the dad. So about 2004, 2005, that's when I started doing the reading, and I got into the meditation much more. And I got into my oracle cards, my angel cards and stuff like that. And then it was in 2015. So I started my first business completely accidentally in 2012. I was a personal trainer, and I hadn't a clue what I was doing. Right, it was just me and my husband, my now husband. We were in so much debt. I had to get another job. So I said, well, what if I didn't get a job? What if I worked for myself? And that's how the business started. But you'll know this: when you start your own business, it's the hardest journey in the world, right? Because every little bit of lack of belief that you have comes up and it's in your face all the time. And so I had a lot of learning around that. And it was 2015. I just started to rent out a studio that was £1,000 a month, and I had a 12-month lease. So I had to stay there, and I hated it. And I remember two things happened. Somebody reached out to me and offered to give me some coaching for free. And she said to me, you do know that you're not your thoughts. And I said, what do you mean? She said, that voice in your head, it doesn't belong to you. You can train it. And I was like, oh, I did not know that. How did I get to that age and not know that? And then the next thing was that I'd seen an advert for Brendan Burchard's Motivation Manifesto online, got the free book. I remember the day I was in the bath, it was April, and I was devouring this book, and I got to the part where it finished with, we shall defeat our demons. And it was like, oh my God, I totally see that. And so that was 2015. It was a slow build. Then I did my NLP and timeline therapy. That changed a huge amount for me. And then becoming a high performance coach was probably the most valuable investment that I've ever spent, because it changed me fundamentally on how I knew that I really was the creator. So I've merged that with my spiritual stuff and my interest in quantum physics and, creating through our thoughts. Mm-hmm. And now I try and live that every day. Right. And I love it.
What advice would you give to single parents who are suffering, who are in depression right now?
I think the first thing is, do not let your current circumstances define what your future will look like. That's the first thing, because it's really easy. It's feeding back like they left me, or I left but I'm broken and I've got, I'm struggling for money, or all these things that come with being a single parent. Even I don't think it's so bad these days, but there was a lot of, I had to claim benefits. There's all that kind of society stuff about, well, you claim benefits, so you're like down here. And so don't let that define you, and don't ever let that define how your life can change, because it can change in a heartbeat when you make the decision. Another thing is, and this isn't going to sound very nice, but I feel like I can say it because I have been manically depressed, so I know what it feels like. But that oftentimes we teach ourselves to stay depressed, because what we do is our psychology, our mind just keeps repeating the same conversation. Oh, look, you don't have any money. Oh, look, you're not worthy because somebody left you. Oh, look, you're a single parent. Oh, look, you're never going to get anywhere. And we have these same thoughts 95% of the time, over and over and over and over again. If we can just learn how to direct our thoughts, we start to immediately change our reality. And it's not saying that you're going to go from depressed to, joyful, But you could go from depressed to, I'm going to make a new choice today. Like, I'm going to get out of bed earlier. I'm going to paint my toenails today. I'm going to look at my children and I'm going to make them the reason that I become a better version. Because the thing that really got me this year, I did, you might have done this in the mastermind as well. I did Dean Graciosi's 7 Layers Deep, the 7 layers of why.
Right.
And I realized I'd spent a long time, my why was I felt so bad for being what I deemed to be a bad mum for such a long time, that I had to prove a point. When after that exercise, I decided that actually I can't go back and change the future, but I can decide to be an influence today and show my children that if they have the right mentality, they can achieve whatever the hell they want. And that was a real game changer for me. And I want to just remind people that you probably wouldn't ever look at your child and go, you know, you're going to come to nothing. You're going to be miserable. But when they see us doing that every day, we are teaching them that is their reality as well. So if you've made whatever you do, whether you've made the decision or the decisions being made for you, understand that the way that you show up is creating the program that your children have in their head about what their life's going to look like.
Thank you.
Just do something nice for yourself.
Yes. Where can people find you?
So best place really is on Instagram, which is it's all under Your Rich Life. So Louise Cartwright, if you Google Louise Cartwright and Your Rich Life, you'll find me. My new website is yourrichlife.co.uk. That's where you can find lots and lots of free resources on how you can kind of improve your life mentally, physically and spiritually. And then I've got louisecartwright.com, which is more about the high performance and the money mindset stuff that I do. But I'm always on Facebook. You can always find me there.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being with us.
It would be a pleasure.
You are such an inspiration, and I hope single parents out there will concentrate on not where they are right now, but changing their mindset, thinking where they're going to be in the future and not living in the past so much, because all we really got is now the present moment. And oftentimes we're trying to live in that past mentality, but it's not a way forward. There is no way to change the past. You just have to hope for the best. And
I think, you know, it's not even really about hoping for the best. It's about expecting the best. Right. That was the, you know, expect more. You know, my saying of this year is, when you expect more from your life, you have to expect more from yourself. And it's going to be a challenge. There's going to be a lot of fear, but you were born with everything that you needed to make that happen. So just trust that process and just work on it every day. And your life will 100% turn around, and it'll be so much more magical than you think it will be.
All right. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you so much.